Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Dose of Sass. I'm very excited because I have a brand new podcast mic, so I feel like a fancy real podcaster now. I don't have the little baby handheld one, and that means I can record on my computer now because I was like running out of storage on my phone, and it's just really cute. So, hopefully the audio is great. I'm excited about today's topic, especially because I have an exciting announcement at the end of this episode for a virtual event that I'm doing. You may have already seen it on Instagram by the time you listen to this episode, but stay tuned. It has to do with what I'm talking about today, and that is dance. I'm talking about dance. Last episode, I talked about my relationship with movement and what that looks like for me. And a big part of that is dance. And I want to talk about how that journey has evolved because dance brings up a little bit of complicated feelings for me. So, in case you didn't listen to last week's episode, one thing to know about me is I grew up a musical theater girly. I started doing theater as young as I could. My brother did it. My mom was a costumer. My dad would build sets. It like ran in our family. But dance was something that I always was kind of insecure about. So, for one, I've always been super inflexible. I am not flexible at all. Genetically, I've just been stiff. Like, my hamstrings are short. I've never been able to touch my toes. I've never had the splits. I literally got kicked out of gymnastics at the age of 8 because I couldn't do a somersault. And they told me I wasn't flexible enough. Like, you're not going to thrive in gymnastics. You should quit while you're ahead. You know how damaging that is to a child? So that was always a sore spot and still is my lack of flexibility. It's something that I'm really insecure about, to be entirely honest. I hate stretching. I try to do it because I know it's good for you. And like I'll do warm-up stretches before a workout or a dance or whatever, but like yoga, stretch-based activities, not my strong suit and not something I enjoy because flexibility is not something that comes naturally to me. And as I've grown, not just in age, but in my body size as well, flexibility has gotten even harder. I will say that flexibility, I like to separate flexibility and mobility. I do think that I'm pretty mobile. And as I've increased my activity level and my movement, I have noticed an improvement in my overall mobility, my ability to get up and off the ground, my ability to like sit up, whatever, like those kind of typical movements, but flexibility still, intentionally stretching those muscles, not a strong suit of mine, not something I enjoy. And so movement types like Pilates, yoga, I don't even know what the rest of them are because I try to avoid them. And so that weakness, I know, listen, I know that it's not a failing to be inflexible. I don't need to have my splits as an adult. It's okay. But I'm saying weakness because that is something that I personally am insecure about. And especially is something that I viewed as a weakness for a very, very long time. So that weakness, getting kicked out of gymnastics, a lack of flexibility led me to having a weird relationship with dance. I wasn't ever put in ballet classes because ballet and gymnastics kind of go like hand in hand. Usually, if you're good at one, you're good at the other. Like a lot of movements, there's a lot of crossover of movements. And the more I got into musical theater, the more I was insecure that I didn't start dance at a young age. Now, I don't remember having like some people say she came out of the womb dancing. She always wanted to be a ballerina. She whatever. Like that was never me. I like music, I like dancing, I like theater, but like I wasn't begging my mom to go to dance class. So I didn't start ballet at 2 years old like a lot of people that are good at ballet or still do ballet. And as I reached the age of maybe 8 or 10 and started doing theater and wanted to be better at dancing, I felt really behind. I literally already felt behind at like 10 that I hadn't started ballet at like 3. I'm like, oh, maybe I would have been flexible by now. Maybe I would have been able to be in the dance ensemble. Maybe I would ever. Dance of the triple threat, acting, singing, dancing was always my lowest. And I really hated it. Like, I hated that it was my lowest. I wanted to be really good at dancing. I love dance movies. I love to watch people dance. I love dance TV shows. Like, if there's any habit I would love to be a professional at, it's dancing. And that just wasn't in the cards for me. So I started to feel behind in my dance ability. And I very, very clearly have a memory of being in 8th grade. And I don't know how I achieved this, to be honest. but I managed to make the like dance lead ensemble in a show I was doing. So for like a couple numbers, there would be like maybe 6 or 8 of us that would do a dance solo and have this little like upper level hip hop section. And I managed to do that. I managed to make it into that group. And I was so, so excited. And I actually won an award from my theater group at the time for like most I don't know if it's not called most improved, but it's something along those lines of like most like I worked my hardest to do that. And I did a good job, but that was it for me. I was like I'm never going to be the lead dancer. I'm never going to be the assistant choreographer. I'm never going to be the soloist, but like I could make a dance ensemble. That wasn't what I strived for. As I went into high school, I started to get more lead roles, more acting, singing roles. I never was in like a dance focused lead role. And as with anything, I've been this way with sports, I've been this way with dance. I give 110%. I put my whole heart and soul into that, even if I end up just being okay. Like I I play softball every week with my friends and we're not a very good team, but like I try hard. And when I don't do well, I feel really bad. But no matter how hard I try at softball, I'm just going to be average. Like that's just it for me. And I've always felt that way about dance. And I took through middle school and high school, I would take dance classes. I would do well, but I was definitely always like the lower end of the advanced group, right? Like intermediate forever. And I was okay with that. I had accepted where I was at in my skill level and that I was going to maintain that, and that was good enough for me. As I went off to college, and I started college as a musical theater major, and I had this opportunity to, as I was graduating high school, I knew what school I was going off to, and they were doing auditions for their first show of the fall during the summer. So the summer after I'd graduated high school, I had the opportunity to audition. I was invited to audition. This was like a special invite for the first show of the fall. And this was a big deal because freshmen don't usually get casted in that first show. Not to mention like a show, usually their first semester. Like, and it was the show called The Beat Goes On. And it was a musical medley of the history of rock and roll from the 50s to like 2000s. Such a fun show, like conceptually, so much music, and it was very dance heavy. I mean, there was like minimal dialogue to transition between musical eras, but it was for the most part like let's play 10 seconds of every popular song from every decade and costume changes and all of that. And so I was invited to audition for this show and I made it. I got cast in it. I was one of 2 freshmen to get cast in the show. It was only a cast of maybe 20. No, not even. Maybe like 12. Small cast. And this was like my biggest accomplishment to get cast in a dance heavy show as a freshman, first show of the year, as someone who doesn't even consider herself to be a dancer. Like, dance was not my strong suit. This was an incredible accomplishment for me. And I'm not gonna lie, I did a damn good job. I worked my butt off to be in this show. It took a lot of practice. It was a lot of dance styles. I learned to roller skate to be in this show, and I don't know how anymore. Wish I had chosen rollerblades. And this was a huge accomplishment for me because as you kind of get older, like in the musical theater world, it's pretty common. There's this common understanding that you're either a mover or a dancer. And I was very much a mover, like could follow choreography, could keep to a beat, could march and clap, but I was not going to be leaping, twirling, doing somersaults. But somehow I landed a role in this show, and it was 2 hours of nonstop dance. Now, this goes hand in hand with my body image journey and my relationship with my food and body at the time, because this was also the smallest I'd ever been. I had lost some weight my senior year of high school after this extreme diet thing. And so when I auditioned for this show, I was the smallest I'd ever been. When they took measurements for me for the costumes for the show, I was tiny. Tiny in my definition of tiny. And what was scary is I remember being really intimidated that they told you when you take your measurements for your costumes in the summer before school starts, you better stick to those measurements. You better not change because that's what they're basing your costumes on. And if you gain or lose weight in the next 3 months, like you're gonna be in trouble because they've made all your costumes. which like is insane, first of all, and does wonders for one's self-esteem. So the accomplishment of getting cast in this dance heavy show, big deal for me, and being my smallest at the same time really, really tied together in my brain. And so after that, one, I changed my major, and a really annoying thing about my school is once you weren't a musical theater major, they really, really didn't like to cast you. So even though I made it as a freshman in the very first show of the year and had proven my worth to them, I didn't get cast ever again. And because I stopped doing an insanely dance heavy show where I was doing at least like 2 hours of cardio every night at rehearsal and the shows for like 6 months, and I'm off to college for the first time, and I'm also struggling with the binge restrict cycle. As soon as I stopped that activity, of course my body started to change. And that was big, scary stuff for me. So because I associated being thin with this accomplishment of being in a dance show, that became the ideal in my brain. And so as I started to stray from that body ideal, I no longer considered myself a dancer because I didn't look like the Caitlin that was a dancer temporarily. Now I'm back in mover category because I've gained some weight. And here's the thing, dance, like any kind of muscle memory, is like a use it or lose it activity. If you're not practicing something all the time, you're gonna lose it a little bit. And until you start practicing again consistently, it's going to be hard to like get back in the groove of it, especially if your body is changing. So I spent probably the next 3 years of college not doing the same kind of dance. I did still take musical theater dance classes here and there, but not to the extent that I was when I first started school. And that was a lot of change for my brain and my body. And I started to have a much more negative relationship with dance because I didn't look how I thought I was supposed to when dancing. Now enter the next dance era of my life, which was line dancing. I picked up line dancing in college after a friend invited me to go, and Wednesday nights were our nights. We went to our local country bar. They had 18 plus on Wednesdays, and we tore it up every Wednesday. Now, I will say that I was also intoxicated most of these Wednesdays, so I wasn't necessarily really focused on being good at the dances. And it was a casual place where I knew enough to get by, but like most people were kind of just like twirling and drinking. Like it wasn't as serious as Footloose makes it look. So that was my new form of dance. And I didn't take any time outside of those Wednesday nights to practice. Like I wasn't trying to be good at line dancing. I was just going to dance because it was fun and I was hanging out with my friends. And I did that throughout the rest of college pretty much. And then graduating college, getting married, moving to the Bay Area, at my absolute rock bottom when it comes to body image. The last thing I'm going to do is like put myself out there doing something that I've mostly been insecure about most of my life. Then then COVID happened a year after that, and then I definitely wasn't going to find anywhere to go dancing if I even like had the courage to go. And my first kind of introduction back into dance was watching Fitness Marshall YouTube videos. If you're not familiar with Fitness Marshall, he's like one of my favorite YouTube workouts. They do choreography to like a bunch of pop songs, all the popular songs. They'll do similar movements in a lot of their dances. And that was a way for me to like get back into learning to move my body again. Because at this point, I was like about 80 pounds heavier than my freshman year of college. So given it had been like 6 years at this point. But so of course my body had changed a lot heavier than I was in the days that I would have maybe considered myself a dancer. So at this point, not only do I not look like one, I don't feel like one in my brain. And it was really frustrating to start. And one thing about me is I have always been really good at picking up choreography, and this leads into I'll talk about my current relationship with line dancing, but I've always been like quick to pick up on things. So someone can show me something and I can follow along pretty quickly. Now, will I do it well? Will I look the same as them? Maybe not. But I know what the steps are. My brain can do them better than my body can. And so as soon as I started moving my body again, following these YouTube videos, my brain would work faster than my body could move because the muscle memory wasn't there. And it was really, really frustrating. I would go like, oh, I used to be able to do this all the time. And now I'm out of breath faster. I'm feel uncoordinated because I feel uncomfortable in my skin and everything is just so much harder. What happened? And I'd get really frustrated after just doing a couple of these videos that I had no desire to do any more of that. And I would kind of go in a cycle of like, I'm going to get good at this again. And so I'd do a bunch and then I would get frustrated with myself because you can only do something for so long when your motivation is like negatively based. And I would get all motivated to go and then that would wane and then I'd stop doing it consistently. And then when you stop, you lose the momentum and then you get frustrated again when you try again and so on and so forth. And it took a really long time, like probably a year, year and a half of me doing this stupid little YouTube video workouts. They're not stupid, but like just doing YouTube video workouts for me to be like, okay, I am good at this. I'm not perfect at it. I'm still probably going to consider myself more of a mover than a dancer, but I'm learning to move this body, the one that I'm in right now about 100 pounds heavier than my freshman year of college, 8, 9 years later. Not only am I just getting back into the muscle memory of something, but I'm in a completely new body. This is not the girl who did the dance show in 2016. This is an adult in an adult body that's heavier than she's used to. And it moves different than I'm used to. And that was really, really hard to come to terms with, to be honest. And it's still frustrating sometimes. Sometimes I will watch a video, like I'll watch a TikTok dance or I'll watch a YouTube video and go, oh, I could do that. And then I go to do it and then I can't. And that's not necessarily just delusion, but it's it's a fact of like, and I'll kind of go in a spiral of, oh, I bet you 17-year-old, 18-year-old Caitlin could have done that. And now, gosh, 26, 27-year-old Caitlin can't do that. Boo hoo. Girl, it's okay. And I'm talking to myself here. It's okay to start over. It's okay to learn again. And that's really, really scary for me to say. And honestly, I might get a little emotional talking about that. But like for me, I'm a perfectionist and I really don't like to not be good at something immediately, especially if I was once good at it before. I don't like that I have to give myself permission to learn again. I really don't like it. But that's the state that we're in. That's the state that me and myself and Caitlin in her body is in. Because Caitlin in her brain is a better dancer than Caitlin in her body. And when those don't match up, I could spiral. And it's something I'm working on currently. Because even though I do different forms of dance currently, and that's a part of my life, it's still something that I'm insecure about. And thankfully it's no longer rooted in here's the situation. If you've seen me ever do a video on showing an outfit at all angles unposed and getting used to seeing your side profile, it took a long time of seeing my side profile unposed, of seeing candid versions of myself for me to be used to that version of myself, to go, oh, that's what my side profile looks like. I've seen it now. No longer a jump scare. I haven't seen this body dancing enough on video, watching myself, to be used to it yet. It's still a little bit of a jump scare. It's not totally neutralized for me yet. And I had one video this last fall in my heels dance class where I was doing the choreography and I was watching myself in the mirror and I was like, I think I look good doing this. And then I watched the video and I go, yeah, actually, I'm killing this right now. And that was the first time in my adult life that I felt that way, that I felt like, Caitlin, that is a dancer's body. I'm literally going to cry. I haven't actually said that to myself. Because I spent so long thinking that my thinnest self is the dancer. It's really hard for me to look at my current self and see her as a dancer. But I am. I'm not trying to brag, but I am a good dancer. It took a long time for me to get there. I had to relearn. I had to relearn how to dance in this body, and it was really hard. But I am. I'm not going to be a professional. I'm not going to be the best in the class, but I could dance. Whew. Didn't know I was going to get emotional this episode. But my current goal is to watch myself dance more frequently so that I get used to it. Same way that I did with neutralizing my side profile. The more I see myself dance, the more I take videos of me on the line dancing dance floor, the more I feel confident out there because I know I look good. I know I'm doing it. I know I look like I'm keeping up with everybody else. And it's not perfect. It's not error free. And there's definitely days where I look at that and I go, wow, it's this reverse body dysmorphia. You know, when you take a picture and you think you're smaller than you are, and then the picture like throws you off. I get that sometimes when I watch videos of me dancing. I go, oh, didn't know that's what that move looked like on my body, but I'm gonna do it again so that I know what that move looks like on my body, so that it's not as scary next time. So let me get back into my current relationship with dance. Meaning, I talked about what's going on in this little brain of mine, body image wise, but what am I currently doing? So another thing that I got back into is heels. So heels is a style of dance where you wear these like dance specific stilettos. Thankfully, they lace up at the ankle, so you have some ankle support, but they are thin little heels. They're about 3 inches. And if you think getting used to dancing in your own body is hard, let's add 3 inches to it. Let's start to dance on a toothpick. Yeah, extra hard. But it has been really fun and it has been extra confidence boosting because heels tends to be a bit of a sexier style, a sultrier style. It's very slow and more languid movements. It's not like fast paced like jazz or musical theater. It's like strutting and walking and bending and snapping. And there's some floor work involved, which is my most uncomfortable part because of my lack of flexibility. I'm still not very flexible. And sometimes that hinders me when it comes to floor work stuff. But that's a new style that I had never done before in a smaller body. So I think it also is I've only ever learned it in this body. So it feels like something new that I can do. And it's also empowering. It's an empowering dance style. And I found that from a friend of mine. She invited me. We did like a private class, like maybe 6 of us did a single lesson. And I was like, oh, that's really fun. And then I signed up for their like 8-week or 10-week session. And I've done that a few times now. So maybe for about a year. And what I love about the studio, it's a local one to me. It's very inclusive. It's very not just family friendly, but like there are all ages and stages and shapes and sizes in all of these classes. There's a lot of classes for adults, which is really cool because I think that's something that's really hard to find as an adult. I was like wanting to get back into dance, but I was like, I'm not about to just like show up at a ballet studio. I'm going to get laughed out, right? And so this was a place that was super, super comfortable. They use really inclusive language. There's modifications offered if I can't do a certain move, which is important. And that's been a really great, approachable way for me to learn this instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I got to keep up with these professional heels dancers. No, we're all like, we spent the whole first session being like, hey, let's not fall down. Let's learn how to walk. And then we're going to learn how to dance, right? So that's been a really fun journey and a very different style for me. And I'm liking it. I still do some fitness Marshall YouTube videos. They're really fun. And then of course, I do line dancing every week. I found a bar local to me that had line dancing on certain days of the week. And I'd gone like once or twice when I had a friend in town, like one of my friends from college that I used to line dance with. I'd be like, oh my gosh, we have to go now that you're here. But I didn't have the courage to go by myself yet. And then one time I went, I don't remember what got into me, but I was like, I am just craving line dancing. I miss it. And so I went and I ran into a friend of mine there and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you go. And she was like, yeah, I go like every Thursday or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go every Thursday. And so I started going like every Thursday. And the thing that's really fun about line dancing is I do feel like it's really beginner friendly. So you'll see a lot of the same moves in every dance. Grapevines, K-steps, kickball change, like the style, it doesn't feel like you're learning 100 different dances. It feels like everyone's just like a slight variation of the other. So if you can do all of the individual moves, you can put them together. And if you can pick up choreography, you're solid. The hardest part about line dancing is like you do 2 to 4 8 counts and then you turn directions. Everybody turns the direction and you're facing a new wall. And then you do the dance again and then you turn. And then you do it and then you turn. Like making sure you're facing the right direction is literally the hardest part, especially if there's any kind of like turn involved. But the moves themselves are pretty simple. So it feels pretty easy, easy barrier to entry. It doesn't require my flexibility. It just requires my ability to follow along and remember choreography. That's the hardest part is every time I go out, a song will start and I'm like, do I know this song because I've watched it a bunch or did I learn this? And I watch them do like half the dance and I'm like, oh, I know I've done that. Okay, let me go. And my bar, the bar that I go to locally, is really fun because on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they teach a dance to you maybe every 5-10 songs. So you can teach it and then do it. And then like you feel accomplished because you learned one and you're not just like watching other people dance and hoping that maybe you can cut in. Like it's much more approachable. I also will often watch a YouTube tutorial. So if I've gone and go, oh, they do that dance like almost every week, or they play that song every single week, I'm going to look that one up and learn it at home and then come practice it here. And the other thing about line dancing, and this may just be my bar specifically, but I did notice this with even when I went in college, is like they're pretty gracious. Like everybody messes up at some point, and the people around you are really tend to be like, oh, like this way, or like then it's a turn, or like you're going to the right now. Like people are just nice. Now, you're always going to get outliers of people that are like, if you don't know the dance, get off the dance floor. But that's a rarity, I promise. Most of the time, you can kind of like half do the dance on the side until you figure it out. And people will around you will kind of help or like say the movements as they're going so you can follow along, which is super helpful. And you do the same ones like every week. There are popular ones, there are ones you do all the time. So once you learn it once, next week you're going to know it even more. And like each week you get a chance to practice it. It's not like, oh, this week we've got 5 new dances and that's the ones that we're doing. And if you didn't learn them tough, like you're behind. No, like you'll get to do the ones you know, and some are easier than others. And the more you do it, the more you practice, the easier it gets. So it feels pretty beginner friendly, in my opinion. And there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube. So just look up like beginner line dances on YouTube. I'll link one of my favorite channels that I think is easy to watch. That being said, leads me to my special announcement of this episode, which is I'm hosting a virtual line dancing night. If you've ever wanted to learn how to line dance, but you maybe don't have a local place or you don't have friends to go with, or you're scared, or a million different reasons, you can learn with me. So I'm hosting a night. It's on September 10th, next Tuesday. This is probably the first of many, so don't be alarmed if you can't make it to this one, but we'll be learning 2 to 3 dances. Come wear your boots, invite a friend, and we're going to twirl the night away in the comfort of our own living rooms. And you'll learn some beginner dances from me so that you feel confident enough to either keep learning or go out there in the world and try them out. I'm so excited. I've been teasing this a little bit on social media and I officially announced it today. So there's a whole post about it now, but every time I talk about line dancing, people are like, where do you do that? I want to learn. How did you get into it? So now you can learn with me. I'm so excited. So if you want to learn a couple line dances from me, join us for a little virtual girls' night. All the information is in the show notes. There's a link to RSVP, and I'll see you there. So that is my journey with dance. It's an evolving one. It's something that I'm still working on my relationship to, but it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I'm learning to be okay with learning, be okay with being a beginner, be okay with being in a different body than I once danced in. Because it does not matter your size, shape, weight. If you dance, you're a dancer, and I'm a dancer. So I hope this episode encouraged you to pick up dance again, maybe, or something that you've once loved in the past that you're afraid to start again. If there are any personal stories in this that you relate to, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'd love to chat further with you about it. Share this episode with a friend and come to my line dancing night. It's going to be so fun. I can't wait. Happy dancing. Love you lots. Talk to you soon.